Ladies and gentlemen, it is 4:30, so we'll go ahead and get the meeting called to order. I know this is normally our work session. We do have a couple of items that need to be voted on just because of time commitments on a couple of the agreements. So we do have a couple of voting items that change from a work session to a work session and called meeting. So with that, we'll go through the agenda the same as we would any other meeting. It's hard to say, it's already March the 2nd, so this year has flown by. My friendly reminder that my wife is the most excited about is the time changes this weekend. So I thought we still had another month, but she's texted me this morning and let me know that that is this coming Saturday. So I'll do a fire service and remind everybody to change the battery in your smoke detector because that's your good every 6-month reminder. I feel like I've done my public service announcement for that particular item. We'll kick off with our prayer and invocation. I've asked Dr. Robbie Westbrook if he would lead us in the prayer and invocation. Following that, Kirk Anderson, if you read us in the pledge.
Lord, give us a good day, Hanny. Let's go to him in prayer. Precious Lord, we thank you so much for allowing us to live and work in a county that's people give so much to their neighbors when they're in need, Lord. I've seen that so much lately, God, and I'm so thankful to be in this community, Lord. Tonight I just feel led, Lord, to really pray hard for all of our men and women who are in harm's way all the way around the world. And God, I ask you to be with their families. I have been in their place where a loved one is overseas or in combat and you don't know what the next day will bring, God, and we just ask you to be with them and to hold them up. Lord, I thank you for these commissioners, God. They have a hard job. What they do impacts a lot of people, and that weight is really heavy. And God, I just ask you to be with them as they make decisions as we go through the night. God, but most of all, I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who died so that we can live on. And in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's been just a little over 5 years, and I think that I will eventually pull up the first page of the agenda before we start the meeting, but I've not done it yet until after we've done those two things. So, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We do have one amendment, and that's to add an executive session for discussion on legal and on property. So that's the only amendment to the agenda that I do have versus the agenda that's published.
That's correct. That's it.
With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as listed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, and the amended agenda is approved. We'll move on to the first item on the agenda, and that's the consideration and approval of the 2026 Recycling and Waste Diversion Grant. Thanks to Kenny and his team, they've submitted some paperwork to be able to get a grant eligible. And I'm trying to find the detail with the amount. The total dollar amount for the grant is $33,980. Part of our financial policy is to make sure anytime that we're going to amend our budget with additional revenue, that it come before the board for approval. But thankfully, this has gone through, we've been accepted, and I would like to ask for a motion to approve the acceptance of the grant from the Recycling and Waste Diversion.
Motion to approve.
Second motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or question? None. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Kenny, I'd like to thank you for your hard work on getting all that submitted. We appreciate it very much. Next item on our agenda is the consideration and approval of the Family Connections Fiscal Agent. We have continued to serve as the fiscal agent for Family Connections, which is to submit their paperwork back and forth to the state. They still continue to operate. We're just a pass-through from that. It's annually that it does require a renewal of that commitment to serve as the fiscal agent. So I would like to make a recommendation from the staff that we approve remaining the fiscal agent for Family Connections. If I could have a motion to do the same.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or question? None, all in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. Next is the consideration and approval of attorneys to serve the role as an ethics officer. Back in 2024, we did approve an ordinance for ethics, for any code of ethics complaints. One of the things that it does include within that is the appointment of a panel of attorneys to be chosen from. We have a resolution before you that shows the listing of the following law firms to be designated to compose of this panel list. Robbins, Ahoy, Belafonte, Littlefield of Atlanta, Freeman, Mathis, and Gary of Atlanta, Gerard and Davis of Cumming, Roach and Caudell and Frost of Canton, Georgia. Those are the recommended list of attorneys that we have either a commitment from conversation or an existing engagement with each of those firms so that we can have that panel list so that ethics complaints can then go before them to be completed. With that, I would like to ask for your consideration of the resolution appointing that to be our panel of attorneys.
Motion to approve. Second motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion or questions? None. All in favor? None opposed. One will pass across for all to sign the resolution. So. Next item on our agenda is the consideration and approval for hangar H05. It's an application for an approval of site change. One of our aviation airport ordinance requirements is anytime that there's a change being made to a hangar, that it comes before the board for approval so that we can ensure that it is consistent with aviation use. This one's fairly simple. It's to install a motorized bifold hanging door for the hangar that's there. It's not a financial commitment of ours. It's the owner of the hangar that is looking to do so, but in order to make the change to the hangar, it does require approval from the board. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the approval of the site or use change at Pickens County Airport.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right, motion is second. Discussion? None, all in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. Let's get that moving forward. All right, so we're going to move into our work session discussion items. We are kind of working on a new format. This was something that we were trying to get set in place for 2026. For those that are not familiar with the organization and the layout of our flow chart, our chain of command, we do have 3 directors that each department falls within each of those directors. So we'll have a report from each director as part of our work session so that they can represent the department heads. They also may call on department heads from time to time to chime in, so that way we can kind of have a way that we go through that process. That's why everybody that walked in and saw it looked a little bit different. They're not on trial, they're not here. Was to be able to go through that. And then we also have the review of the land use intensity district change request, which is as a procedure following the public hearings so that the board can have an opportunity to hear anything from staff on that as well. So we'll kick that off first with the Director of Internal Operations report. So Ms. Miranda McDowell, I want to turn the floor over to you.
Right, so we are in full swing on the bond process for the upcoming big projects for SPLOST. This week we have our Moody's rating phone call, and hopefully by the regular meeting of this month, we'll have more information to give to you guys on that. Let's see. We did receive last week our 3rd notification that we received the GFOA award in finance, so that's great. Let's see, HR, we have had 9 hires in February and 7 terminations. Payroll has worked diligently on, I know you guys maybe have heard about the FLSA overtime compliance for the big beautiful bill. Well, payroll is trying to adapt to that, and it has been a task, but they are working on it and they are doing great. Actually, they have training for that in March. Risk management's still running. She's doing really good, making progress as far as doing research. trying to figure out ways to generate efficient, more revenue with EMS. And buildings and grounds, admin building is looking, at new awnings for replacement in the front. So that should be coming soon. Airport, that building is, underway, should be completed. I guess they're moving really fast. Fire station build out process, projected completion in June, early June. Health department, mold remediation, hopefully by the end of this week, they will be able to move back in that building. So, old jail, completed the ADA compliant raised platform and ramp, they had to do a little bit more. Other than that, that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll now go to our Director of Public Safety Operations.
I'm gonna start with animal shelter, basically, I just went and got a bit of water here, so no rhyme or reason. But anyway, added a third, animal control position due to staffing issues that are coming before the end of the year. Everybody can take that how they want to, but I'm not releasing that, I'm not released it already themselves, so. We did receive one F-150 from Cherokee County Marshal's Office, animal control truck. It has been lettered and is in service, got in service at the end of the year. County Marshal is running calls for service as they come in. They're staying pretty busy. E911, in 2025, E911 center call volume increased by 80%. The result, the increase from 2024, they had 56,312 calls dispatched. And in 2025, they had 71,584. Spam calls continue to be a major issue for 911 centers throughout the country. Basically, since January, in January we had 4,142, and already in February we had 8,231. So big increase, just within the 1 month. So we have had a CAD update that was finished in February of this year. Basically, that had to do with mapping our old system. The ArcGIS desk basically retired, and so we had to update it. EMA in 2025 provided 190 hours of training with 279 participants. So a lot of training through our EMA. The activation, we were activated for 118 hours in 2025. Already in 2026, been activated for more than that, at 161, and that was just in January. So, and then everybody knows about the freak hailstorm that we had that I'm pretty sure my EMA director, I don't know how to put it politely, but got on to the National Weather Service pretty hard, because he had called prior to, and they're like, no, we're not having any, major weather. Well, we kind of saw how that went. Just I want to brag on one employee as well. Megan Leathers has received her basic CEM for emergency management. She got that done on Friday. I don't know why she done that. I was gone, so maybe that's why she got it done. And Pickens County Fire Department, everybody knows as far as fire and EMS, it's always busy. They wrapped up the 2025 responding to 5,794 calls. 3,449 were ambulance transports. Our crews have completed 9,258 training hours for last year, which is incredible. Let's see. The risk reduction team participated in 28 events, reaching approximately 3,500 citizens. So that's anywhere from your fire extinguishers to, multiple things that they go out with the schools and different things with kids and adults. The fire extinguisher thing has really taken off. A lot of businesses have wondered if their insurance will go down, so they're calling pretty regular about getting put on the fire extinguisher program for them. The fire marshal office added 160 pre-fire plans and completed 23 fire investigations. We have received 2 new ambulances, Braun ambulances that we received in 2025 in February. And thank goodness we have received 2 new Fraser ambulances expected to be cleared and in service on Thursday of this March the 5th. They're supposed to be inspected. Along with that, they will inspect the fire engines as well for our BLS service with our engines. A new brush truck has been delivered to the Monument Road Station, waiting for the materials for the improvement of the building so they can put it in there. So it's actually at Captain Caldwell's house where he keeps it for right now. So if they do need it, they can still respond with it. Construction's moving along very well with the Talking Fire Station. It is basically dried in and working on the walls and interior at this point. The Grandview brush truck still kind of pending, which we have discussed prior to. 9 personnel just completed the fire and life safety education class. Volunteer support class just began with 21 participants. So a lot going on, as always, as far as training with fire and all the public safety pretty much. They train all the time, so.
Any questions? Well, on the statement on the brush truck for Grandview, I know that's something that there's a list of volunteers working similar to what happened on Monument Road where there's some donations to go and participate with. Should have all the paperwork and have members present at our regular meeting in March, so that we'll have that presentation ready for March when we get to that point. So, thank you. As we go into the Director of External Operations, I'm going to give just a slight explanation because I have asked Bill when we go through it to do a couple of updates, kind of refresher. One of the things was as our new ordinances that we've passed over the past year changes some of the processes in Chapter 67 and in Chapter 38 when we're dealing with some of the processes for subdivisions and things, to go through and give an update. So when it gets lengthy, it's my fault, it's not Bill's fault. But there are several things I do believe that's good because it is a new process, there's some new things in place so that way he can give some explanation and then we'll go through the rest of the departments as well. So Bill, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Do you want to do the updates first and then?
Whichever method
Yeah,
you
let
got.
me do the
go through.
updates first
Yeah.
and I'll get through them fairly quickly. We've
Okay.
got some pretty good stuff. We'll start with water. Got 2 items there amongst many that we really couldn't report out on. Henderson Mountain Road water line is over 82%, it's 82% complete now, with only 18% remaining, and expecting it to be completed by the end of March. The next one has to do with the 2025 water loss audit. I personally think this is amazing and a product of 10 years of really hard work. So in 2015, the average loss percentage in Georgia of water across a municipal system, which can include a county system or an incorporated municipality, was approximately 30%. And that was in 2015. In 2015, the water department here was right on target, 30%. Well, going now toward the 2025 audit, Philip had a target to basically try to hit 20%. And the state average remained 30%. And the audit, this was just released in February, indicated that the actual loss in the Pickens County water system was 18%. So this is something that Herculean effort, that's all I can say. So.
Yeah.
Public Works, there's lots going on in terms of the normal, maintenance work, pipe and ditch cleaning, potholes, mowing, shoulders, improvements all over the county, and that's going on. I just do wanna put, highlight on two things, and that is that the pre-bid meeting for the summer paper, bid in coming weeks has been held. And so we're looking at Big Ridge County portion of Hood and Jeanette Court, and, it's gonna be substantial, projects, and there'll be a lot of difference made there. And we're looking at options, Public Works is for the Camp Road realignment at 515, which is really important thing. Solid waste and recycling, Chris already mentioned the grant, that Director Wood has been able to receive. There's actually more grants that, have been received, one for a new generator for the main facility, a tire amnesty grant, whereby over 800 tires were disposed of, and a grant for a mobile recycling trailer. This past month, recycling shipped out almost 2 million pounds.
That was last year.
Huh?
That was total for last year.
Okay, last year, yeah. And then, recycled 100,000 of glass bottles, and Director Woodard was appointed to the Georgia Recycling Coalition Board of Directors. That's quite an honor. With regard to the airport, Miranda mentioned the building that's going up, it made amazing progress. Scheduled for completion June the 3rd, 26th. I actually think will be in mid-May if things keep to schedule. With regard to leasing out the rest of the airport, there is space remaining out there. We're working with the engineers now on various site plans that'll be presented to you all for approval that will then lay out what is going to be done with those, and then also decide on the process of how those leases will be awarded, for lack of a better term. We're starting to get military helicopters in again. We had 5 the other day that came in at once and refueled. The perimeter fence phase 2 is going to have a bid opening on March 31st. And then the rehabilitation of the terminal area apron, which is on the side of the runways, that bid opening is on April the 7th. With regard to Parks and Recreation, there is a regional, what the name of it is Boys Mountain Athletic Conference Tournament was held, so we're starting to get some tournaments in. That's a good thing. On the baseball updates, going to have 601 kids participating in 54 teams. Football, the registration will begin on May the 4th. The next blood drive will be on March the 20th.
Sounded like the blood drive and the football trials all fit together. Unique way to have a football drive.
I'll get through the rest of this stuff as quick as I can, and we'll see if I have any blood left. But,
That may be what the drive's for.
you better start it sooner than that, then. All right, there's some things we really need to go over, because we're starting to see some cases of first impression, and we'll get into that. So we're revisiting some key principles here, and the key principles are basically subdivisions and how you all adopted ordinance to treat that, and also roles and responsibilities with regard to certain things that happened here. With regard to the subdivisions, all of this happened in 2025. And these all actions happened on May 5th, May 22nd, and August 18th. And we're talking about substantial changes to the ordinance. 6 chapters there. You can read them from the standpoint of some significant amendments and also the creation of some new chapters outright. With regard to subdivisions, there were 2 of them that impacted it significantly. And when we did this, with regard to the subdivisions in those 2 chapters, we're basically trying to focus on 2 things that are competing against each other in this county right now, and I'm talking about unincorporated, not anything inside any incorporated limits, and that is desirable growth versus overly built-up areas. And that really looks like a simple thing, but it really is a layout of what we are dealing with as the staff and what y'all are dealing with. So when we look at that, we look at basically a concept of high density, which is high building density and high population density. And the high density is basically, we're looking at chapter 67 in land use to help us to deal with that. And in that, the higher density versus lower density, we have several tools to use, but we're just going to cover 3 of them, and again, it's for context. One is the county's approach to multi-unit dwellings. The other is called MUDs. The other is the county's approach to sewer. The other is the county's approach to subdivisions. And that sets up the context for this. So we use these 3 things, amongst others, to manage high building density, with a direct impact on high building density, which has an indirect impact on high population density, but need to also say that managing multi-unit developments also indirectly impacts high population density. This is what we're trying to accomplish at 100,000 feet, and it's relative basically to everything that's going to be said in this part of what I'm talking about today. So with regard to subdivisions, before May of 2025, and then after May of 2025, Chapter 38, land development, was the only applicable set of ordinances that we had. This is an important administrative subdivision approval process executed by the staff. The focus is on the functionality of a would-be subdivision at ground level, not whether or not it should be there, but if it is there, is it functioning in a manner that basically is susceptible to the Board of Commissioners achieving its goals that basically the people that have elected them to do. This involved a detailed review, analysis, and determination of plat certificates, impact statements, and developer plans. It's a very powerful process if done correctly. But the limitations are this: there's no BOC involvement in it per se. There's no PC recommendation involved per se. And there's no consideration of, does a subdivision fit in at a particular location? So that had to be fixed. And here's how it was fixed. Chapter 67, land use becomes applicable. Each proposed subdivision must be vetted as to fit by the BOC. That's what the subdivision as a land use process does. The BOC will designate as a permissible land use, a specially permitted land use, or a prohibited use, any particular subdivision. The Planning Commission makes recommendations to the board on these proposed developments. The staff supports the BOC and the Planning Commission. So before and after, you've got both of these. You've got Chapter 67, but you've still got the powerful processes left in 38 with regard to the subdivision approval process, which again, more technical in nature. And so the less technical in nature is still very technical, but less technical in nature. Chapter 67, does a subdivision development fit in with regard to where it's being proposed to be utilized? And if it does get past that, does it function, will it function in a manner so as to achieve objectives? And if it doesn't, what types of requirements are going to be imposed in the subdivision approval process for it to do so? And you'll see here in a minute, something can get approved on fitting in part, but it might not be able to make it past the subdivision approval process, which is in a completely different chapter. So, the fit in. Commercial subdivisions, 5 or fewer, called minor. More than 5, major. Residential subdivisions, 5 or fewer, more than 5, major. And these are the decision questions in terms of the recommendations from the Planning Commission and then yours for the ultimate decider on this. As a particular proposed subdivision development is located in an applicable land use district, All right, should we grant, if there's a yes answer on that, should we grant a special use permit? No. Should we reclassify the land use district? If we do reclassify it, should we grant a special use permit? And there are some of these land use districts that you'll see where someone will have to change from an existing land use district to an acceptable land use district, but that's not enough. So major subdivision, they've also got to get a special use permit. If it's already designated, then they just have to get a special use permit. We'll have examples in a minute. And basically, the land use reclassification technically is a recommendation for denial of requested amendments to the official map of the land use districts in Georgia. And the land use districts, you'll see there are 18,865, and this is as of a few months ago, of different districts in Pickens County that comprise the map. And here they are. Agricultural, small agricultural, state residential, rural residential, special planned communities, suburban residential, private community, rural business land use district, neighborhood commercial, highway business, in industrial and institutional. This is as of the changes back in May. And so those were the two new ones that came in May for very specific reasons that aren't really pertinent to today. Eliminated in May were suburban residential land use district and the urban residential land use district. These were eliminated for future future use. It's a density management tool, because by eliminating those two things, moving forward, the smallest lot size in this unincorporated Pickens is 1.5 acres. This took out some lower density amounts there. Now, master plans govern these two things. We don't have number 5 in the county. Number 6, Bent Tree, and Big Canoe. They got the master plans that govern this. So, subdivisions are possible in those 4 land districts. They are not possible in those 4 land districts. So they are possible in ag, small ag, state residential, and rural residential. That's it. All right. Here we have it set up. Those are the districts at top that are applicable. So there's either a permitted use, a specially permitted use, which requires a special use permit, or a prohibited use. With regard to major subdivisions, more than 5, permitted, which means automatically permitted by right, nowhere in this county. Prohibited use, prohibited there. Specially permitted use, which requires a special use permit, permitted there. So if someone wants to go from one of the others back to the other one, they'll have to do 2 things. They'll have to get the change in the land use classification, and they'll have to get the special use permit. All right, so that's the way it sets up on the whole, and both apply. So chapter 67, land use, if in any particular case, the BOC grants a land use district reclassification and or a special use permit, depending upon which district it's in and whether both are required, it moves to the chapter 38 subdivision approval process. It's, as we said, an important ground level and detailed process of review. And if the BOC grants a special use permit, to allow this with conditions, any requirements imposed by the subdivision approval process may be stricter, and they will prevail because strictest standards will apply. Got 2 different concepts going on here. Land use, again, does it fit in? Dark green. Land development, if it fits in, will it function properly? Light green. Got to go through both of those. And with regard to the functionality, I'm just going to go again because of time. These are all of them. It's a non-exclusive list of the things that are looked at in chapter 38. So you can see where they are. A lot of detailed stuff, and all relevant parties are involved. Be it fire, be it water, be it public works, and this is basically what has to be gone through in the chapter 38 subdivision approval process. Just a couple of examples. These are the road standards. Those are very specific. Now, you all may make a condition as to a applicable road to allow a change or put it in a special use reclass or put it in a special use process. You still gotta meet these. If they're more strict than what you guys put in. Now, you may just look at this and decide you wanna just go ahead and put it in on the land use side and to comport with it, but if you don't, it's gonna have to meet these. And here's a second, just that's the utility placement. And it is, there's no flexibility in this whatsoever, it has to be met. But again, this comes into play in land development, chapter 38, and subdivision approval process. So, that's subdivisions. Now, because of some things that we're going to go over in a few minutes as we deal with the cases that are up for you guys on the 16th, we need to look, Chris has asked me to basically say just a little bit about roles and responsibilities in chapter 67. The overriding principle of everything is only the Board of Commissioners can make zoning decisions, period. That's it. Only you all. Sometimes it's thought that the Planning Commission can, they can't. They're an advisory body that provides recommendations to you guys. The sole decision-making part is with you guys, the Board of Commissioners. All right, so we look at zoning decisions, rezones and rezone classifications and special use permits. VOC makes the decisions. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations. Staff supports the VOC and the PC with regard to the things that they need to make the recommendations and then make the decisions respectively. And a very, very important part of this is the chairman, Stansel, serves two roles in this county, like maybe, 9 or 10 counties across the state have this system, whereby the chairman is elected and serves in a legislative capacity with the two post commissioners, but on a daily basis serves as the chief executive of the county. So two hats going on there. And so that's really important when we look at the role of the board and then the role of the chief executive as it relates to really overseeing the staff on a daily basis and making a lot of administrative level decisions, if not all. So that's roles and responsibilities. I don't do that.
So I know it's
It's gonna get worse.
It is technical. We've recently had our first case of someone that has applied for a major subdivision since this ordinance was put in place. Very first time it was dealt with staff, very first time it was dealt with planning commission, and it's the very first time it's gonna come before the board of commissioners to follow the process and the procedures that were there. I know we went through this at the time that the ordinance was put in place, but I felt like it was good for us, as the board, and then for anyone that's participating to be able to see that procedure, because you can pull up the ordinance, you can read it all day long. There's several hundred pages of material that not everyone's gonna understand everything that goes through there, especially when you look at the divisions on function versus on the approval process. So having just a good refresher before we dive into going through the recap of what's gonna be coming. We do have 2 months worth of planning commission meetings that we're going to be hearing in March. We did not have a meeting in February. I believe that was the month of illness and everything else that could possibly be going on. So the rezones for January and from February will both be heard at our March meeting. And so we're gonna move into those. I'm gonna have Bill kind of go through and do a recap. Charles, unfortunately, is out on medical leave tonight. Charles typically does these presentations. Bill's gonna go through, he's kind of got a little bit more in-depth. Anyone that's been in our meetings, Bill has a very thorough style, and he's gonna provide detail. It may look a little bit different than the presentations in the past, but it should give us all the information, because it was coined in one of the newspaper articles as trademarked or fashion. So we'll have him go through and go through and do the review of the land use intensity district change request. so that we can look at those, and then following that, we'll have the public comments portion of the meeting. So, yeah, unless you have a question on what he just went over with 3867 before,
Great, yeah, thank you.
we'll turn it back to you to let you get through what's the request that we have.
Cases for POC consideration in the March 17th regular meeting. There are 4 cases. 3 of these cases occurred in the last 2, or came up from the Planning Commission in the last 2 months. The 4th is going to be what's called a down zone in the ordinances, which doesn't require a meeting for the Planning Commission, because it's streamlined. It's something that goes from a higher density type of parcel to a lower density. And to encourage that kind of thing, part of the process is streamlined in the ordinances, which we have the legal right to do. We're going to start with Land Row Code. Then we're going to go to the Hankins case, then the Coogan case, and then the down zone is going to be the Reed case. So we'll go through those 4. Now, if you're looking, when you're accustomed to seeing, sort of playing off what Chris said, you're accustomed to seeing the way that Charles does his presentations. I just have a different style. I use different optics. So I basically adopted my style for this, except for the land court case, and you'll see this. The content's the same, it's just in a different format and maybe summarized a little bit differently. But we have to look at the land ROCO case in a manner that we really haven't had to look at anything else before. All right, so land ROCO. This is RZ 191101, land ROCO, Pettit Road, Ag to SA, small ag, ER, and RR. So you really got 3 reclassifications that are going on. It's 145 plus a little bit, almost 146 acre tract. There's the parcel number. The intent is to create a subdivision with more than 5 lots. That is a major subdivision. The location maps, y'all are familiar with the county, and so that's where this is basically located. The aerial view shows it from that standpoint, consistently with the location maps. The character area is rural residential, and you can see the location of this approximately with the little green star and the green arrow with the yellow glow on it. So the rural residential character area, there's primary land uses, agricultural, and this is again coming out of the comprehensive plan. It's not part of our zoning ordinance except by incorporation. Forestry, low density single family residential, recreational facilities, convenience goods and service establishments such as strategic location along the major collector and arterial roads, especially state routes. I know that these particular items, at least at the staff level, drove toward the recommendation you'll see a little bit later by the staff. There's also the notion of the development pattern in the character area, rural residential, and that is to protect farmland, open space, environmentally sensitive areas through low density development, preserve the economic viability of agricultural, livestock production, forestry activities, limit grading and clearing, preserve natural hydrology and drainage ways, carefully design roadway operations and new road construction to minimize scenic and environmental impacts, preserve rural character area viewsheds and natural features, utilize natural features for stormwater management, and accommodate low intensity uses. The proposed plat, that's it. Basically, this is the rural residential part of it with the yellow arrow. The density here would be 1.5 acres. It's the smallest part of this. Next would be the estate residential land use in district. You can see there with the blue arrows, a larger part of this. The density there is 1 structure per 3 acres. And then the small ag, the largest part of it, and the density there is 5 acres. So from a standpoint of residential, this can be considered a low-density proposal. This was, as Chris mentioned, this was planning and development and PC's first case in applying the new Chapter 67 subdivision provisions, even though it was, you guys adopted it back in May. It's the first one that's come up. And the recommendations come from the staff and then the planning commission. This was, as I said, the case of first impression, staff recommendations. This was the original frame that I pulled out of the PC. That's what it looks like. There was a recommendation for approval at the staff level. Staff's reasoning was accommodate low-density housing options and support small-scale agricultural practices, align with collective vision for future growth and sustainability, enhance property values, attract the demographic that appreciates the tranquility and charm of rural living. All of that is consistent with the character area designations, the two things that we looked at in terms of the development patterns and the land use. Then you get to the planning commission recommendations, and this is where we've added some things. So the PC votes on its recommendations to the DOC. First thing that was taken up was a reclassification of the land use districts, actually the 3 reclassifications of the land use districts. Then a special permit was taken up. The reclass of the land use districts, there was a recommendation for denial. Let me explain that. A recommendation for denial in our ordinances, in our system, occurs 2 ways. Either somebody says, I want to make a motion for denial, and it gets a second, and that's voted on. The second way it happens is, probably more often, is that there is a recommendation for approval and it fails. Either one of them constitutes a recommendation for denial. So you had that 3-2 vote in against recommendation for approval in this case. That's what come up, that's what went before them. As a result, the recommendation for denial was taken down because of and I've got quotes around this, a recusal. So the recommendation for denial went down, then there was a recommendation for approval. That went 3-2, flipped. Then, because there was a recommendation for approval, it went to the special permit. There was a recommendation for approval, and that got it. Now, let's break this down. Review of the tape. This all happened, what you saw, literally in the space of a couple of minutes. I mean, it was bang, 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 bang. So reviewing the tape for us is a lot like the review booth in an SEC game on Saturday. That's what this was like for us, and that's exactly what we did the day after, several times. And so there we have the setup, the recusal. And like I said, this all happened in rapid succession. The recusal itself, the member statement was not a recusal. So let me explain that a little bit at a high level and in general. State law requires, puts the burden of recusal on the member. The member did not make a recusal because the member made a statement about something adversely affecting a family member, and then the member proceeded to vote. That's not a recusal. So it wasn't a recusal. So there was no recusal. Therefore, the recommendation for denial has to be dealt with. The recommendation for denial was valid. Now I'm talking about procedurally here. I'm only talking about procedural. I'm not getting into the substance of the application of the substantive provisions that we discussed earlier about whether or not this is an appropriate use for this area. We're not getting into this. This is just procedural. But procedures are very important. So it stands. The recommendation for approval is inapplicable. The special permit is inapplicable because there was no recommendation of approval. the recommendation of approval for the special permit is all inapplicable. This is what we have. It's the procedure, not the substance. All right. What comes before you on March 16th now? What comes to you is a recommendation of denial of reclassifications of land use districts.
Yeah.
Again, it's the map, it's to change the official map or amendments to the official map. Now, why were we able to make this determination that we just presented? Because only the VOC can make zoning decisions. The Planning Commission can only make recommendations to the VOC. The VOC interprets the recommendations, which is what we did. The staff supports the VOC with the interpretation. The chairman plays two roles here as we discussed, and that is how we were able to do it. It's the chairman, it's me, and Director Reese. This will be your first case for this as well. And your first case is to you'll either accept the PC recommendation for denial of the LUD reclasses. If you do, this is over. You can reject the recommendation for denial and adopt the LUD reclasses. And the official land use map is amended. You must then vote on the granting of a special use permit because of the particular LUDs involved in this case. And if you vote no, it's over, even though you changed the map. If you vote yes, then the special use permit is granted, and Chapter 38 subdivision approval process will commence. And in this case, it'll be a three-step process. That is basically a preliminary plat, and then a second stage relating to infrastructure or a bond, and then a third stage of the final approval of the plat. Happens all the time back there, we do them all the time. All right, that's that. Okay, now, Craig Hankins on behalf of Hankins Properties. This case is on Highway 53 East. It's ag to highway business, 8.1 acre tract. There's the parcel number. The intent is to create a secure parking facility for semi and tanker trucks. Jerry, I believe that this is strictly their trucks.
Yes.
This is not leasing out space to somebody to come in and just do that. So I think that's an important thing that needs to be pointed out. All right, so we have the location maps there. You see it's ag, that's what wants to go to highway business. And the aerial view is there, which is right off 53 there. The character area, there's two here. So you'll see this layout a little bit different. There's the East Pickens Conservation Area and there's the Crossroads Community Marble Hill area. That's why you have two different colored stars and arrows with the colors basically coordinating with the color of the text. East Pickens Conservation Area, Crossroads Community. These have different primary land uses. You can see those, they'll be in your files and you can read them and see what those primary land uses are on that piece of it. And then you can see the primary land uses that the comprehensive plan lays out for the Crossroads Community Marble Hill. That's the technical filter that it should go through, is some of the criteria that you look at for the ordinances in making this kind of decision. The development pattern, again, you can read those as you prepare, and then the development pattern for the Crossroads Community in Marble Hill is there. The recommendations, staff recommendation, with recommendation for approval. Staff's reasoning on this was proximity of significant industrial operations to allow for the establishment of a dedicated parking area for semi-trucks and related vehicles. This would provide essential support to the significant industrial operations that are near there, and there are some significant ones near there, which would assist those businesses by enhancing their operational efficiency and logistics management. And then there are many different types or multiple types of land use districts that populate the surrounding area. which can be considered to provide some flexibility in this. I believe that, in my discussions with Director Reese, the third star there had a lot to do with this in terms of helping out the local business. So the staff recommended it. The Planning Commission to approve this was denied by a vote of 4 members opposed to 2 members in favor. So there you have, by way of a recommendation for, or motion for approval going down, it becomes a recommendation for denial. So that's what you have on those. Tina and William Poole. This is Highway 53 West, RR to RB, 6.02 acre tract, parcel 032051008. Intent is to relocate an already established business to the family property. Now, so we got rural residential. Rural business is one of the new items that was brought in May as a new type of land use district. And this is sort of what we were looking for to accommodate by creating that, which would accommodate home-based businesses without necessarily having all of the restrictions that are existing in the home-based business. And so the location maps, you can see, the aerial view is there. The character is rural residential. We already went through this on the land ROCO. And we went through the primary land uses, and we went through the rural development patterns as well. And on this one, the recommendation, staff recommended approval. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. None opposed. That brings us to the Reed case. This is a down zone again, not requiring Planning Commission action. And what is going on here with the Reeds is the address is 225 Reeds Ridge Trail and Sutton Road. It's rural residential to ag, so it is going from a density per lot of 1.5 structures to 10. So that's, again, something that I can tell you from a policy standpoint we want to encourage. It'll be up to the board to see if that makes sense from a standpoint of actually the application of it. We've got 3 tracts totaling 66 acres and a little bit. Those are the parcel numbers. The intent is to preserve the current agricultural nature and rural characteristics of the area. There's the location maps. There's the aerial view. The character area is rural residential. Again, we've seen this before with the same primary land uses as we've seen before, with the same development pattern as we have seen before. Again, this being a down zone, a significant down zone, staff recommended approval. The staff's factors that were looked at was preservation of rural community character, compatibility with surrounding land uses, alignment with comprehensive plan, support of agricultural activities benefiting from the broader community, and then rural residential to ag, as I've mentioned earlier, 1.5 acre density to 10 acre density, and as again being involved in the drafting of new chapter 67. This policy-wise is exactly what we're looking for. So that will come to you directly from the staff, and you will hear it on March 16th. There will be a public hearing. That public hearing has been appropriately advertised. There are our cases for yours.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot of firsts, and then some that we traditionally have that come forward. So if you have any questions,
I'm good. I just want to commend you, Bill, because you just went over in 20 minutes and my mouth about hit the floor when I just happened to look at the commissioner's laptop and saw 541 PowerPoint slides.
Well,
so anyone that saw me pointing him to point at the screen, I was trying to read a lot of them, how they build. So The trademark style.
Good stuff.
That's it. So, no, thank you. I
Please,
appreciate it.
please, that's been used once is enough.
I think, if you say it enough, it gets quoted again, so.
I'm actually gonna start trademarking.
So that brings us to the point of public comments for the meeting. I will explain kind of the public comments rules policies for the board whenever they're heard. You have 2 minutes. You can stand up, identify yourself for the record, then we'll start the clock as you identify yourself. Do it in an orderly fashion. If you raise your hand, if you do have a comment you want to make, I'll set a timer. That way you know I'm not just trying to be mean. After you've introduced who you are, I'll hit start. That way you can know that the time's there. It is public comments. It's not a Q&A time. The board does not kind of engage back and forth and try to answer questions. Any comments are directed to the board. It puts the comment on the record. So just so that we don't have to repeat that every single time that somebody does have a comment, it never fails. There's a question that's going to come out every time somebody stands up to speak. So I have to explain it each time in order to move through. So I'll open up for public comments at this time. Anyone that would like to, if you raise your hand, we'll call in and get going. Well, with no public comments, then at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session. The purpose of going into executive session is to discuss purchase property as well as to consult with legal counsel on pending or potential litigation. Do I have a motion to go into executive?
Motion to go executive session.
Second motion.
Motion being discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
We will go into executive. You're welcome to stay. We'll come back out.